Hi there. Have you been confused by all the information that is available about nutrition? Have you ever thought to yourself, I want to be healthy, but I don't know how in this crazy world? If so, you're in the right place to learn everything you need to know about how you can be your healthiest self by improving your digestion. We'll learn how to make the easiest and healthiest sourdough bread to the truth about yeast and sugar. Join me each week and we'll talk about everything from junk food to your protein needs. We will even dive into some unspoken topics like, what is my bowel movement trying to tell me? Or how can my emotions possibly affect my digestion? For more information on how to be your healthiest self, visit us on healthyselfwithfood.com, where we provide resources including recipes, cooking classes, and coaching appointments. I believe to completely take care of your whole self, that it includes what you put on your body. So I'm very happy to introduce you to our amazing sponsor, Gervine Family Farms, where you can find the best smelling soaps and healing body products on the market. Gervine Family Farms is the home of all natural, real soap and body products that truly heal your skin. Do you regret washing your hands because after you do, your skin is dry and irritated? If so, try the healthiest soap on earth. It is made from coconut oil, essential oil for the smell, and herbs or spices for the soap color. All the ingredients are so healthy for your skin that you could eat them, but please don't eat the soap. It doesn't taste good. There are no fillers, synthetic dyes, fragrances, or low-quality oils. Real soap doesn't strip your skin of all your body's natural oils, thus requiring you to use lotion so that your skin doesn't completely dry out. Save money on lotion by using real soap, and you will never be able to go back to your fake beauty bars that you call soap. Find us at GervineFamilyFarms.com. That is GURVINE FamilyFarms.com. My name is Kaisa. I've always been intrigued about being my healthiest self, even from a very young age. I have been continually studying and testing out all sorts of health options throughout my life. I'm thrilled to be a certified health, life, spiritual, and soul purpose coach, and for the last 10 years, I have enjoyed working as a nutritional counselor in a naturopathic doctor's office. As a nutritional counselor, I guide patients through protocols for their particular health ailment prescribed by their doctor. I also have almost 30 years of experience in making healing food for my 6 children, husband, and friends. This doesn't mean that my food always turned out or tasted good, but they sure were good sports as I learned many tricks and tips that I now can share with you in your food journey. I recently discovered Ayurveda, and I am currently studying to become a digestive specialist. Ayurveda is the knowledge of life. The basic principle of Ayurveda is to prevent and treat illness by maintaining balance in the body. Let's dive into today's topic. Today, I am really excited to talk about vitamins with you. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because it's something that I've always been fascinated with and always used, but didn't always understand. So I want to share with you what I've learned and what I understand. So I am going to start by telling you what vitamins are. Vitamins are organic substances that are generally classified as either fat soluble or water soluble. And I'm sure that these are statements that we've heard before, but I wanted to go into a little bit more about what that means. Fat soluble vitamins, and some examples are like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. They dissolve in fat and they tend to accumulate in the body. Whereas water soluble vitamins, examples are vitamin C and the B complex vitamins and folate, they must dissolve in water before they can be absorbed by the body, and therefore they cannot be stored. So what this means is that any water-soluble vitamins that are unused by the body are primarily lost through urine, as opposed to the fat-soluble vitamins that if you for some reason take too much, they are stored in your fat. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this later and what that means. But the next category that can also fall under vitamins are minerals. And that's just because we can take them in a supplement form. But minerals are inorganic elements that are present in the soil and water, which are absorbed by plants or they're consumed by animals. And while most of us are likely familiar with things like calcium, sodium, and potassium, which, if you recognize those, are similar to what you may understand as an electrolyte, which all electrolytes are the minerals that our body needs. But there is also a range of other minerals, including trace minerals. And though examples of those are copper and iodine and zinc, and these are needed in very small amounts. That's why they are called trace minerals. So often people will ask, well, what about a multivitamin? And let me tell you a little bit about that. If we know that our diet includes plenty of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, good protein, and healthy fats, that should provide us most of the nutrients that's needed for good health. But unfortunately, not everyone manages to eat a healthy diet. And by healthy, we just mean balanced in the way that we're getting all of these different things in our diet. So, multivitamins can play an important role when nutrition requirements are not met through diet alone. But it should just be something that's temporary until you have restored your health. The goal should always be to obtain our vitamins and minerals from our food, because consumption of vitamins are synthetic and they're not always properly absorbed or utilized, and this can cause problems in our bodies over time. We'll talk a little bit more about this later as well. But I wanted to tell you a little history with vitamins. Did you know that vitamins and their precise requirements have been controversial since their discovery in the late 1800s and early 1900s? It was the combined efforts of epidemiologists, physicians, chemists, and psychologists that led to our modern day understanding of vitamins and minerals. After years of observation, experiments, trial and error, they were able to distinguish that some diseases were not caused by infections or toxins, a common belief at the time, but by vitamin deficiencies. So the chemists worked to identify a vitamin chemical structure so it could be replicated. And soon after, researchers determined specific amounts of vitamins needed to avoid diseases of deficiency. In 1912, biochemist Casimir Funk was the first to coin the term vitamin in a research publication that was accepted by the medical community. Derived from vita, meaning life, and amine, like vitamin, so maybe it's pronounced amin, referring to a nitrogenous substance essential for life. So Funk is considered the father of vitamin therapy as he identified nutritional components that were missing in diseases of deficiency, like scurvy, which is having too little vitamin C, beriberi, which is too little vitamin B1, pellagra, too little vitamin B3, and the rickets, which is too little vitamin D. The discovery of all of vitamins occurred by 1948. Vitamins were obtained only from food until the 1930s, when commercially made supplements of certain vitamins became available. The US government also began fortifying foods with specific nutrients to prevent deficiencies common at the time, such as adding iodine to salt to prevent goiter and adding folic acid to grain products to reduce birth defects during pregnancy. In the 1950s, most vitamins and multivitamins were available for sale to the general public to prevent deficiencies, some receiving a good amount of marketing in popular magazines, such as promoting cod liver oil containing vitamin D as bottled sunshine. So I found this history interesting and something that we need to take into consideration when we're looking at vitamins. I know that I have always thought that taking vitamins was the best way to boost my health. And I didn't necessarily understand all of the science behind vitamins. So, knowing the reason why something's developed can be helpful. And we don't necessarily have the same deficiencies in our time because we have access to a lot of food. And so you can see how there could have been a great use for this a long time ago, but that doesn't mean that we necessarily need to be applying it the same to ourselves today. So I want you to think about this as we go into all of the function and information that I'm going to give you about all the different vitamins, because really what it's going to come down to is you analyzing yourself and what you need and how you want to go about that. Because I think at the end of the day, we all want to be healthy, but what I found out in my own personal journey is that what I had been exposed to or what I understood up to that point was inaccurate and wasn't actually helping me. And so I'm happy to share what I've learned now so that you don't have to go through those same mistakes, shall we say. So I have a few stories about vitamins. So my first story is that there was a point in my life where I was starting to have some knee pain and some lower back pain. And I had tried things like buying a new bed or, um, trying to support my back or do different things like that. And once I went to the doctor and I was able to actually get diagnosed with, I did a bone density test. My midwives that I had been seeing at the time, I had offhandedly mentioned something about how I don't like to drink milk. I never really liked the taste of it. Turns out years later, I found out through some testing that I actually was sensitive to dairy or to milk. I had eaten cheese up to that point and it didn't seem like it bothered me as much, but milk did. So the midwives were concerned that I was low on calcium and that it was going to affect my bones. I have a smaller structure, and so they tend to believe that that kind of structure is prone to getting osteoporosis. So at 29 years old, I was sent to do a bone density scan, and when I walked into the office, everybody that's in the waiting room is, like over 65. And when I checked in, they didn't believe that I was there for a bone density test. I didn't realize that that was something that people don't tend to need until they are older and think that they have issues. And so I was doing it kind of as a preventative measure based on the recommendation from my midwives who just thought that there might be some sort of an issue. Turns out after the test that I did have like in the 75 to 80% range of I don't know if they call it like bone loss, but you should be at 100%. And so in my legs, I was at 105%, very strong, because I did a lot of running and in the sport that I play, soccer. And so that wasn't an issue. But in my back, it was in the 75 to 80 range, and they were concerned. So then that sent me to, other kind of doctors that look at, well, what are we going to do to fix this problem for you? And so the endocrinologist put me on high doses of calcium. Um, and the idea was, we haven't gone into a lot yet, but with the vitamin supplementation, when you need something, when you are low on something, you take the doses of something to up your vitamin levels and fix the problem. So this was accurate in what their logical thinking was, but there's so many other factors to synthetic vitamins that you're taking. And what had happened was that I didn't absorb the calcium. And therefore, it was free flowing through my body, going through my liver, doing whatever it does. And it was accumulating because remember, the mineral is one of the ones that doesn't it doesn't get released. You don't want to have too much of it. And so I actually ended up with kidney stones that I had to pass. And that was super painful, not fun at all, worse than giving birth with no drugs, no painkillers, and, no baby when you're done. Just, yay, I'm alive. And that happened from taking vitamins, um, supplements that my body in the case, didn't absorb properly, but nobody was looking at, let's test, let's make sure that you do absorb it. Is this a bioavailable, form of calcium? And so that wasn't a fun process for me to go through, and not something I would want to recommend to anyone else. So, needless to say, that after I went through that experience, I promised myself I would never take calcium again. I learned more through my own study about myself and the reason why I hadn't absorbed the calcium and why I had the issues that I did. And it was because I actually am a carrier of a mutated gene for it could be a disease, but I don't actually have the disease. I just have one of the mutated genes that is an indicator when they did all the blood work and testing on my liver to see, how it was doing and what levels it was at. I have one of the mutated genes for hemochromatosis, which is basically like high iron in your blood, which isn't really a problem as far as like people wanting to have, iron, but because it's free flowing, like that calcium was that didn't absorb, the iron is not absorbing either, and therefore it's going through your liver. And so for people that either have the disease or even one of these markers can get liver damage. That's kind of another story. It doesn't have to do with supplementation. But because of that, I chose not to take calcium anymore. I learned more about iron. Iron was not something that I wanted to take and didn't need to at this point. But in previous years, through pregnancies, I was recommended that I needed iron because it looked like I was anemic. And I had some experiences with taking iron supplements, and they can make people constipated, and I think it's also an absorption thing. And so I chose through my pregnancies to get the iron that they were recommending through my food, even if it was something like blackstrap molasses or something that you would drink or eat that wasn't a pill. So that's another story. But the end to the story about the calcium and trying to change or help my bone density in my back, turns out that the answer was for me to do weight bearing exercises, weight resistance, um, lifting weights, however you want to look at it, but putting that strain on my back in a healthy way to build up the strength of your bones. And so what had been happening all these years is that I was running around and playing my sport that didn't involve my arms really or my back except for just, running, but it wasn't enough. And so I was starting to feel the effects of the breakdown of bone in my spine and in my back. So I did the weight resistance. I built my back strength up, not something that you could visually see, but I had no more pain. I had no more back pain. Um, Shortly about the same time, I can't remember if it was before, during, or after, but I also discovered that I had flat feet. And so my arches made a difference as far as the alignment of my body as well. But when I went back to get a follow up on my bone density test years later, um, and maybe it wasn't even years, it could have just been a year, my numbers had changed in my back and got up to the 100%. So that was just from the weight resistance, because after I had experienced the calcium supplementation situation, I chose not to do that anymore to get my numbers up. So that was a good success story on doing something different. But we don't always know these answers until we've either experienced it or we hear it from someone else. And so, my second story is that I have always believed that if vitamins are good for you, more vitamins are even better for you, which is part of our culture and, growing up in the propaganda and stuff that has told us that, taking vitamins can boost your health. Why not do it? But what I discovered from taking a lot of vitamins, and I was taking very specific things. I was taking a glucosamine for my joints because remember, they were kind of hurting before I discovered what was actually going on. And someone had told me, oh, glucosamine worked for me and my joints. And so I'm like, oh, well, that's what I'll do then. And then I was taking an antioxidant pill because I knew that antioxidants were good for your body because they are what gobble up those bad genes, or could be mutated genes, or like cancer cells, how they kind of mutate in a way, and the body knows to gobble them up. Well, they have to have antioxidants to do that. So I was taking one that had cranberry in it, and then I was taking a brewer's yeast because I had been told that that was good for your gut and for digestion. And so what I discovered was when I started having some health issues, some skin issues, which is telling me that my liver was having some issues as it kind of brings out like dry skin or rashes. Um, the the naturopath that I was working with said, we should do a food sensitivity test. And I didn't know a lot about that at the time, but I said, sure, if it'll be something that will give us answers as to why I'm having these random skin issues when I eat right, I exercise, I get enough sleep. I feel like I'm doing all the right things. And it turns out that I was sensitive to some key components to those particular vitamin supplements that I was taking. And so, like the antioxidant one that had cranberry in it, I was actually sensitive to cranberry. Now I loved cranberry juice and things like that, but by me taking higher doses of it than I would just from eating food, I was exasperating my body's reaction to it, my inflammatory reaction, and it was causing pain in my joints or problems in my skin, or I was having more headaches. So I got off of that. It turns out I was also sensitive to yeast, so I got off the brewer's yeast. The glucosamine um, was derived from like crab, which was one of the things that I was also sensitive to, like kind of like shellfish, but like crab. And so by getting off of these things, I actually improved my health with the things that I thought that I was helping it with by taking the supplements. I was actually hurting myself because I was bringing in too much of things that either weren't working for me, either they caused the food sensitivity, or it was just something that my body was having a hard time processing, or it was just period too much. And so it means that I probably was absorbing these particular elements from these supplements, but it was just too much. And so I overdid it. And so I was actually able to physically see the signs of overdoing supplementation. When I thought that I was doing good for my body, I was actually hurting myself. So now let's talk a little bit about how we can analyze or decide what we may or may not need to take as far as vitamins and supplementation. So understand that it's far better to undergo a blood test for your vitamin levels and under a professional guidance to determine which particular vitamins to supplement and in which doses. And you can see when I was trying to take care of this stuff on my own, or I thought from guidance from doctors that knew what they were talking about, it wasn't the right answer. Today, there are tests, some easy tests, and even tests you can do at home that there's hair tests that are easy to do at home, because often in an office, a doctor's office, you would do a blood test, which isn't something that you would really, do on your own, but it can test your levels of your vitamins and minerals in your body. But also the particular test that I've had experience with using with different patients or clients also test your gut biome, which is pretty cool to see where your probiotics, your bacteria, all the good stuff that's in your gut biome, what levels they're at. So it's better to supplement the vitamins for a prescribed period only. And you can see how that can be a better way of going, but you want to make sure that you understand your body, that you understand what your needs are. And then there's a big question about, are the, vitamins bioavailable, which means, our body absorbs them or can grab the actual vitamins from the vitamin itself, because they may tell you on a bottle that it has 250 milligrams of whichever vitamin or mineral you're trying to get, but you are only going to absorb 10% of it. And so you think you're getting enough, but you're not. Or that your absorption rate's different than someone else, and now you're getting more than what you thought. So it's better to avoid oversupplementation, which may cause increased vitamin levels, which is also harmful to the body based on the story that I told you. So now let's talk a little bit about how Ayurveda tackles vitamin deficiency, because that's really when we should be looking at taking vitamins at all, rather than just taking a multivitamin or taking vitamins because we heard that they're good for our body, which is true. All vitamins and minerals are good for our body. But the question is, do you need any extra, or are you getting everything you need from your food? Or are you low in something? Are you deficient in something? And so what I love about Ayurveda is that it looks at this as, if someone's vitamin deficiency deficient, there is something we can do about it. And so vitamin deficiency is not just caused due to lack of vitamins in diet. It's often the problem in absorption of vitamins is the main cause of vitamin deficiency. And so I love being a digestive specialist now and understanding that it's all about our digestion and what we actually absorb rather than the lack of taking vitamins. So this is the reason that like a well-nourished person, so someone that's eating plenty of food, are also often diagnosed with deficient vitamins because even though they're partaking of enough food, if their body's not absorbing the vitamins and minerals from the food, they're actually vitamin deficient. And also people that are suffering from a metabolic disorder would also be vitamin deficient. So Ayurveda calls the digestion process Agni. It's spelled Agni, so it doesn't really look like how it sounds. But in Ayurvedic treatment for vitamin deficiency, the initial emphasis is given to improve the digestion strength and then the correction of the digestion process with respect to liver, pancreas, stomach, and intestines. And that leads to proper Agni or digestion process and good absorption of consumed vitamins. So, for this purpose, Ayurvedic herbal medicines are used because we tend to absorb them really well because they're food rather than something that's been processed into a vitamin. The underlying disease should be treated, such as something like diabetes, so as to improve your vitamin absorption. That way, your body's not fighting against the actual disease that it has, like diabetes. It's it's healed from that and then able to actually absorb the vitamins. And then detoxification therapies can be used to get rid of toxins all at once throughout the body. But once the body is detoxified, all the hassles in the absorption of vitamins and other nutrients are taken care of. So, once after the digestion process and underlying diseases are treated, then vitamin rich foods are given to the patient, initially to ensure quick recovery. But Ayurveda recommends using vitamin supplements for a period of 4 to 8 weeks only. And once the normal values are restored in the body, and that would be based on your symptoms improving, then the patient is encouraged to have vitamin rich foods because now you're going to absorb the vitamins from your foods. So let's go through all the different vitamins that our body needs, all the different vitamins and minerals. And each of the vitamins that we're going to talk about, they play an important role, and they have an important job in the body. A vitamin deficiency occurs when you do not get enough of a certain vitamin, and vitamin deficiencies do cause health problems. But we want to be treating based on knowing that we're having an issue rather than pre-supplementation, right? Like preventative. So, not eating enough fruits, vegetables, beans, lentils, whole grains may cause an increase in your risk for health problems. And this includes things like heart disease, cancer, and poor bone health, like the osteoporosis that we had talked about. I was clearly not absorbing the calcium from my food, even though I was eating enough calcium from calcium rich foods other than dairy. I was eating broccoli and bok choy and spinach and things that have calcium in there. And like a fig. Do you know a fig has a whole bunch of calcium in it? It's not a fruit or a food that you would typically say, oh, that's a calcium rich food, but it is. But because I wasn't absorbing it due to my high iron levels that were free flowing through my body, I wasn't absorbing the calcium from the food that I was eating. So I had to fix the problem first before I could start absorbing. But the answer wasn't necessarily supplementation, but actually fixing the problem. So the first vitamin that we're going to talk about is vitamin A. And vitamin A helps form and maintain healthy teeth, bones, soft tissue, mucous membranes, and skin. And vitamin A has an important role in T cell differentiation and proliferation, which creates our immune function. So it's really important to our immune function. Consumption of proper amounts of vitamin A daily is proven to improve bone mineral density. Look at that. I could have been eating things with vitamin A in it instead, and I would have improved my bone mineral density. But remember, I found weight resistance, which totally worked for bones as well. Wasn't even a vitamin. Vitamin A is an antioxidant and has an important role in regulating cell growth and development. So the amount that we need in women is 7 micrograms or 2,333 IUs. And we'll talk a little bit about what these measurements are. And in men, it's 900 micrograms or 3,000 IU. And the max that you want to ever consume is 10,000 IU. After that, it's going to be toxic. Let's talk about the ways that you can get vitamin A naturally, not necessarily by taking a vitamin. Dark colored fruits, like something like a tomato, dark leafy vegetables, something like spinach, egg yolk, fortified milk. Now, I'm going to say something, a little caveat here, because often with these kind of vitamin things, they will list fortified milk and dairy products or fortified products. And I don't personally have a lot of faith or believe that those are the best products for most people. And that's because of an absorption thing, because now you're talking about a synthetic vitamin that's pumped into a food that essentially can be really good for you if you were eating like raw dairy or something that was just really clean. But it's gone through all this process and cleaning and pasteurization and all this stuff. And so then they pump it full of some vitamins so that you actually get something from it. You need to decide what's best for you in eating, cheese, yogurt, butter, and cream and things that are fortified. But it's okay to be eating them, but I wouldn't do it in the case of saying, oh, good, I'm getting my vitamins by eating these. Whereas the other foods that are grown naturally and have those vitamins and minerals in them are different than something that's fortified synthetically. So another food under vitamin A is cod liver oil, chicken liver, beef, and fish. And then there is ghee, carrot, pumpkin, capsium, apricot, papaya, and mango. So all those things naturally have vitamin A in them. And the deficiency of vitamin A looks like night blindness, impaired vision, particularly in dim light. I'm going to try and say this word, xerophlamia, which is a medical condition where the eyes fail to produce tears. I didn't know that's what it's called. My grandma actually had this. Um, but so it's something that would be a very big sign of a vitamin A deficiency. Xerosis, which is dryness of the conjunctiva, which is part of your eye as well. Um, Bitots spots, and that's a buildup of carotene debris in the conjunctiva. Again, the eye. We're talking a lot about eye stuff with vitamin A. Keratomalacia, I don't know if I'm saying any of these right, but it's an eye disorder that involves drying and clouding of the cornea. Vitamin A deficiency can also give you a lowered immunity, hyperkeratosis, which is the abnormally thickening of the skin, enamel hypoplasia, which is the deficient enamel amount, so like on your teeth. So if for some reason you or someone you know has any of those signs or symptoms, you could know like, oh, you have a vitamin A deficiency. Obviously, they could go to the doctor, they could get some lab work done and be able to be told exactly where their levels are. But that would be the time that we would want to either be eating lots of foods with vitamin A or taking supplementation temporarily to boost the body back up to reverse those symptoms. The next vitamin is vitamin D. It is also a fat soluble vitamin like vitamin A. And in humans, the most important compounds in this group are vitamin D3. It's called cholecalciferol and vitamin D2. You've probably seen these kind of words on the bottles of like a vitamin D3 bottle. But, how often do we say these things? And vitamin D2 is urocalciferol. So D3 is the cholecalciferol, and the D2 is urocalciferol. So they're kind of spelled similarly, but the beginning's different. And in general, vitamin D2 is found in fungi, and vitamin D3 is found in animals. It stimulates interstitial calcium and phosphorus absorption, and it helps in bone resorption, modeling, and remodeling. So I don't know if everyone knows this, but our bones go through a process on a regular basis where it's almost like they actually break down and then they're rebuilt. And that's what the modeling and the remodeling is referring to. And so it's important that we always have enough calcium in our bodies for that process. Now, there's some other vitamins and minerals that assist in our bone processes. So it's not just calcium, but that's what that's referring to. Vitamin D is also known as the sunshine vitamin since it's made by the body after being in the sun. 10 to 15 minutes of sunshine 3 times a week is enough to produce the body's requirement of vitamin D for most people at most latitudes. And people who do not live in sunny places may not make enough vitamin D. It is very hard to get enough vitamin D from food sources alone. Vitamin D helps the body absorb calcium. So a lot of times you're going to hear that there's vitamins and minerals that actually assist each other. They help. They help in binding, they help in absorption. And so you need calcium for the normal development and maintenance of healthy teeth and bones. It also helps maintain proper blood levels of calcium and phosphorus. So vitamin D and calcium work together. So the levels that we need, women and men 19 to 70 years old need 15 micrograms or 600 IU. And then as people get older, 71 years and older, they need more. They need 20 micrograms or 800 IUD. And the max that you would partake with before, I don't want to say before it would cause problems, but um, would be 100 micrograms or 4,000 IU. So you'll see this often on vitamin D bottles that it's 4,000 IU. But the question is, how much of that are we actually absorbing when we take it in a synthetic form? So the foods that you can get vitamin D from are fish, fatty fish such as salmon, mackerel, herring, orange roughy, tuna, and sardines, fish liver oils like cod liver oil, mushrooms, egg yolks, and again, it has listed on here the fortified milk and dairy products, which I don't personally think would be the best way to get it. And now that's not to say that just having dairy products, if you had a clean source of that, wouldn't be a bad idea for getting vitamin D. But if it's fortified, then you might as well be popping a synthetic vitamin pill, and that may or may not work for you. The deficiency shows up as osteomalacia, which is a softening of the bones. And when this happens in children, it's called rickets. And so, we don't see a lot of that these days, but it's something I'm sure you've all heard of, and it's something that used to happen. And so there is a lot more um, education and knowledge on getting enough vitamin D in our diet. And just remember, it's super easy to just get it through the sun and not even have to take a supplement. The next vitamin is vitamin E. It is also fat soluble, and it's an antioxidant also known as tocopherol. It helps the body form red blood cells and use vitamin K. So again, you hear about it helping another vitamin. It acts as a radical scavenger and helps to keep the immune system strong. And remember that radical scavenger is what's kind of like, well, it's not like, it is an antioxidant, but that's what an antioxidant does, is it scavengers for radical genes that have been mutated or changed that aren't correct, that our body needs to consume so that it doesn't turn into a tumor or cancer or something else. And vitamin E also helps to keep the blood from clotting within the blood vessels. So the levels are for women and men 15 milligrams, and the max, which seems crazy to me, it says that you can have up to 1,000 milligrams. Such a big difference. But I would just aim for the 15 milligrams from our foods. And the foods that you can eat that have vitamin E in them is avocado, rice, potatoes, dark green vegetables like spinach, broccoli, asparagus, and turnip greens. These are some of the examples of ones that have vitamin E in them: safflower, corn, sunflower, rapeseed, grapeseed, and palm. You want to make sure they're organic, not non-GMO. Also, papayas, mangoes, corn, olive, and soya bean, seeds and nuts like hazelnut, sunflower seeds, peanut, pistachio, cashew, and wheat germ oil. Those are all foods that have vitamin E in them. And the deficiency from vitamin E is ataxia, uh, peripheral neuropathy, myopathy, retinopathy, and the impairment of immune responses. So you might have to look up some of those to know what they are. I don't want to go into too much or we're going to be here all day, but if you know any of those things or you have them, then you would know that you have a vitamin E deficiency. Now we're going to talk about vitamin K, and it's needed because without it, blood would not coagulate normally. This is why they give babies when they're born a vitamin K shot, to make sure that their blood coagulates. Some studies suggest that it is important for bone health through bone metabolism. It plays an important role in blood clotting by production of prothrombin. It regulates blood calcium levels. The amount that you need to have as a woman is 90 micrograms, and as a man, 120 micrograms. The food that you can get vitamin K from is cabbage, cauliflower. Cereals is one of those fortified things, so again, not high on my recommendation list. Dark green vegetables like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and asparagus. Dark leafy vegetables like spinach, lettuce, kale, collards, and turnip greens. And fish, liver, beef, and eggs. And the deficiency for vitamin K is excessive bleeding, bruising, blood clots under the nails, dark black tar-like stools, and bleeds in your mucous membranes. Now we're going to talk about some of the water soluble vitamins. And the first one is going to be vitamin B2, which is also called riboflavin. And this helps in proper development of skin, the lining of digestive tract, blood cells, and brain functions. We only need, as women, 1.1 milligrams, and as men, 1.3 milligrams. It's not very much. And we get this from eggs, green leafy vegetables, milk and other dairy products, almonds, mushrooms, meat, broccoli, yeast, soya bean, and whole grains. You've probably heard some of these foods already. Can you see a pattern that some of these really great foods for you can provide multiple vitamins so they can be like your multivitamin by eating these foods? The deficiency for B2 looks like um, bioflavonoids, which is characterized by stomatitis, which is an inflammatory process affecting the mucous membranes of the mouth and lips, with or without an oral ulceration. Um, chi, I don't know how to say this one either. It's Cheilosis, chelosis, maybe. Painful inflammation and cracking in the corners of the mouth. Maybe you know someone that's had this, or you've had it yourself, but you didn't know it had that name. Um, but if you had cracking in the corners of your mouth, or glossitis, which is inflammation of the tongue, conjunctivitis, which is inflammation of the conjunctiva, and anemia, so any of these things would be an indication of low B2 in the body. The next one is biotin, which is vitamin B7, and this is essential for metabolism of proteins and carbohydrates, and in the production of hormones and cholesterol. It is essential for skin, hair, and nail health, and it aids in cell growth and maintains the mucous membrane. For women and men, the dosage or the amount, that recommended amount that we need, is 30 micrograms or 10 milligrams a day. The food that we get this vitamin from is chocolate, cereal or whole grain bread, mushroom, cauliflower, legumes, milk and egg yolk, nuts like walnuts and peanuts, organ meats like liver and kidney, or pork, salmon, sardines, and yeast. The deficiency for B7 looks like fine and brittle hair, hair loss, cracking in the corners of the mouth, dryness of the eyes, anemia, seborrheic dermatitis, fungal infections, lethargy, hallucinations, anorexia, depression, loss of appetite, and myalgia. All right. Sorry, I know I'm going kind of fast, but we have a few more vitamins and I don't want to keep you here all day, but I find this very fascinating. The next one is folate, vitamin B9, which works with vitamin B12 to help form red blood cells. It is needed for the production of DNA, which controls tissue growth and cell function. It enhances brain health, prevents age-related hearing loss. And any woman who is pregnant should be sure to get enough folate. I know we've all heard this, and that's why they infuse a lot of foods with folate. It's not always the best form or the most bioavailable or absorbed, the kind that we absorb the best, but nonetheless, they were trying to do the right thing by making sure people had enough folate so that it wouldn't have birth defects. Low levels of folate are linked to birth defects such as spina bifida, and many foods are now fortified with folate in the form of folic acid. We almost need to do another one and talk more about each form of the vitamins, which one would be the best if we were taking it in a synthetic form. But ideally, if we are just eating these foods that I'm talking about, you're going to get the vitamins you need. So in women and men, the recommended amount is 400 micrograms and the max is 1,000 milligrams. Again, that is such a difference in numbers. So just remember the amount we need. And we get it from foods like asparagus, broccoli, beets, avocados, liver, cheese, eggs, brewer's yeast. Remember that brewer's yeast? That was a good thing I was supposed to be taking. Dried beans, cooked pinto, navy, kidney, and lima. Green leafy vegetables like spinach and romaine lettuce, lentils and chickpeas, oranges and orange juice, peanut butter, sunflower, seed kernels, hazelnuts, and wheat germ. The deficiency for folate looks like fatigue, gray hairs, stomatitis, glossitis, I'm not sure if I'm saying that one right, pallor, shortness of breath, anemia, and neural tube defects. The next vitamin is niacin, which is vitamin B3, and this helps maintain healthy skin and nerves. It also has triglyceride lowering effects at higher doses. The recommended amount for women is 14 milligrams, for men 16 milligrams, and the max dosage 35 milligrams. The food that we get this vitamin from is avocado, mushrooms, green peas, eggs, cheese, soya milk, enriched breads and fortified cereals. Again, not my favorite. Brown rice, whole wheat, fish, tuna and saltwater fish, lean meats, liver, legumes, nuts like peanuts, potato, cooked. That's just telling you cooked potato, not raw potato, but I don't know if anyone eats raw potatoes. Poultry. And the deficiency to a severe vitamin B3 deficiency causes pellagra. It is marked by dementia, diarrhea, dermatitis. Yeah, I said that right. The symptoms are red, flaky skin with reddish brown discoloration, thin, scaly or cracked skin, and itching or burning sensation over the patches, apathy, depression, confusion, headaches, restlessness, anxiety, delusions, sore lips, tongue, gums, decreased appetite, nausea, and vomiting. A lot of those particular symptoms that I just read to you are things that could be associated with something else as well. But it's interesting that they list those specifically for vitamin B3. So, what would be great is if you noticed any of those kinds of things, you could say, oh, I'll eat more avocado, or I'll add some mushrooms to my meals, or I'll eat some green peas, or eggs, or fish. I mean, like, it would be so much easier to implement food into your life as medicine rather than trying to take some sort of supplement that's may or may not work for you. Next vitamin is pantheon acid, which is vitamin B5, and this is essential for metabolism of food. Sorry, after a while reading some of these big words, my mouth is in being tongue twisted. It also plays a role in the production of hormones and cholesterol, and B5 converts food into glucose, which is a very important process. So the amount that we need for women and for men is 5 milligrams. So it's not a lot, but this comes from avocado, mushrooms, broccoli, kale, and other vegetables in the cabbage family, eggs, legumes and lentils, soybean, milk and yogurt, mushrooms, organ meats like kidney, poultry, pork, duck, beef, salmon, lobster, shellfish, white and sweet potatoes, and whole grains. And the deficiency of B5 looks like tiredness, apathy, depression, irritability, sleep disorders, nausea, vomiting, numbness, muscle cramps, and hypoglycemia. The next vitamin we're going to talk about is vitamin B1, which is thiamine, and this helps the body's cells change carbohydrates into energy. That's really important. Getting enough carbohydrates is so important during pregnancy and breastfeeding. It's always important, but extra important during those times. And it's also essential for heart function and healthy nerve cells. Thiamine is responsible for the proteins into amino acid catabolism. Thiamine also plays an important role in muscle contraction and conduction of nerve impulses. The amounts that we need for women is 1.1 milligrams, for men 1.2 milligrams. And we can get it from dried milk, eggs, and bread, lean meats and fish, legumes like dried beans, nuts and seeds, organ meats, peas, and whole grains. A lot of those foods are really similar to the foods that we just mentioned above, too. So I can see that there's a similarity in some of these B vitamins that we get from the same foods. The deficiency of vitamin B1 is wet beriberi, which affects the cardiovascular system, causing fast heart rate, shortness of breath, and edema of the lower limbs. Dry beriberi, which causes wasting and partial paralysis due to damage of the peripheral nerves. It is characterized by difficulty in walking, loss of sensation or tingling sensation, loss of muscle function, loss of tendon reflexes, difficulty in speech, and mental confusion and pain. The next vitamin is vitamin B6, which is also called pyridoxine. Vitamin B6 helps form red blood cells and maintain brain function to prevent the onset of Alzheimer's disease. This vitamin also plays an important role in the proteins that are part of many chemical reactions in the body. The more protein you eat, the more pyroxine your body requires. B6 is essential for protein, fat, and carbohydrate metabolism. It reduces high blood levels of amino and homocysteine, which is linked to depression and other psychiatric disorders. For men and women from 19 to 50 years old, we need 1.3 milligrams. And then when you are over 51, you need 1.5 milligrams. And then in men over 51, they need 1.7. So as we get older, this is one of those ones that we need more of. And we get this from avocado, banana, oatmeal, wheat germ, brown rice, dried beans, legumes, vegetables, soya beans, nuts, poultry, pork, fish, eggs, whole grains. And the deficiency looks like peripheral neuropathy, ooh, seborrheic dermatitis, glossitis, the one that I don't remember how to pronounce, ciliosis, depression, confusion, seizures, normiocytic, microcytic, and sideroblastic anemia. A lot of big words, but you can tell that they are connected to blood type diseases. The next one is vitamin B12. Like the other B vitamins, it is important for metabolism. It also helps form red blood cells and maintain the central and peripheral nervous system, essential for brain and nervous system functions. The amount that we need is 2.4 micrograms for men and women, and we get this vitamin from meat, eggs, fortified foods such as soy milk and milk products, yogurt and cheese, organ meats, liver and kidney, poultry, shellfish, and fish like trout, salmon, tuna, and clams. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard of B12, especially if people have been like wanting to eat vegan, which is typically not eating any of the things I just listed, they won't get a lot of vitamin B12. So that's one that there's a lot of conversation about. Do I need to supplement it if I'm eating this way where I'm avoiding meat and dairy products? So that's, again, kind of another day's conversation just because there's so much that could be said about it. But the deficiency of vitamin B12 is fatigue, lethargy, depression, poor memory, breathlessness, headaches, pale skin, mania, psychosis, and Crohn's disease, malabsorption syndrome, and irritable bowel syndrome are all things that could be signs of a low B12. And there's a note here that animal sources of vitamin B12 are absorbed much better by the body than plant sources. So that's not to say that there aren't plant sources, but supposedly they are absorbed better from animal. That's just a matter of someone's opinion. I'm personally a big plant fan. I think that plants are the bomb. They can provide everything that we need, but it is true that we may need to be aware of how much more we need to have of certain vegetables or plants to gain certain vitamin levels. The next vitamin is vitamin C. We've all heard of vitamin C. It's also called ascorbic acid. It's an antioxidant that promotes healthy teeth and gums and repairs cartilage and bone, and it helps the body absorb iron and maintain healthy tissue. It is also essential for wound healing and collagen synthesis. Women need 75 milligrams, men need 90 milligrams. The max is 2,000 milligrams. We can get vitamin C from broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, Indian gooseberry, pineapple, passion fruit, guava, black currant, kiwi, fruit, papaya, capsicum, citrus fruits like lemon, orange, and grapefruit, potatoes, spinach, strawberries, tomatoes, and tomato juice. And the deficiency, it looks like scurvy. Early symptoms are weakness, lethargy, sore arms and legs, shortness of breath, bone pain, myalgia, rough skin, easy bruising, poor wound healing, dry mouth and eyes, and losing of teeth. Oh, that's crazy. I think most people tend to get enough vitamin C, so this one's typically not a problem. But just remember that many people, and I was one of them, think that if some is good with vitamins, a lot is better. And this is not always the case. High doses of certain vitamins can be toxic. So, the last thing that I just wanted to mention really quick is just that you'll often see that there's a recommended dietary allowance, which is the RDA, which is the government setting, doing testing and setting up certain levels that they believe that we need for everyone's bodies. And the average daily level of intake that is enough to meet the nutrient needs of nearly all healthy people. And RDA is an intake level based on scientific research and evidence. So if the numbers that I've been giving you on here of how much we need is from the RDA, what they're recommending. You're not going to really be able to measure that as you're eating your food. So if you're eating a balanced diet that has a lot of these vegetables and whole grains and different things that we've been mentioning, you're going to be getting the vitamins that your body needs. The other measurement is adequate intake, which is AI, and that was also just developed at about the same time, the same way. And then if there's so many things that could be said about vitamins. I feel like we've talked about a lot today. Hopefully, you've learned something and you've gotten some ideas of how you might want to supplement your body with food rather than synthetic vitamins or minerals, and understand that taking a whole bunch just to take them isn't necessarily good. And if you're having any sort of health issues and indications, uh, and you are taking vitamins, not necessarily on a doctor's recommendation, you might want to look at doing something different and testing things out with your body, or going and getting testing and seeing if you are low on certain vitamins or minerals before you choose to take something, and then do it for a short period of time to raise those levels, go get retested, see that they're back up, and then really train yourself on how to get those vitamins naturally from food. That is my quick recommendation. Sorry that I've had to talk so fast today to try to get all of this in, but I find this information super fascinating and something that I love talking about and love helping people figure out what they can do so they can be their healthiest self. Thanks for joining me today. I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
To be your healthiest self, join me each week as we talk about a new topic that can help you, your family, and your loved ones in your life to be your healthiest self.